Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are in a month dedicated to protectors and defenders, sponsored by Dragonfly. And today we are really fortunate to have with us two incredible gentlemen who've dedicated, I think, between the two of them over 51 years to law enforcement. We've got David Martel, the Director of Public Safety Programs at Volatus Aerospace, and Timothy Martin, the Director of UAS Training at the Regional Training Center from Los Angeles. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
All right. Very good. Very good. So everybody out there, just a reminder, we are live. So make sure you're dropping in the chat, giving us positive encouragement, asking these guys your questions, because we're going to be talking about basically the Regional Training Center and the programs they have, and basically how to set up a public safety drone program. And Dave is an expert in indoor tactical use of drones. So we're going to be hitting all of these topics here today. So without further ado, let's jump into it a little bit here. And let's start with you, Tim. Would you mind just giving the audience a little bit of background about yourself to set the stage?
Yeah, of course. Good morning. So I just retired July 1st of last year from Huntington Beach Police Department, where I did 28 years total. While I was at Huntington Beach is kind of where I got into drones. In about 2018, I wanted to start the program. Kind of what you talked about with Dave is we had a sensitive call that required officers to go inside of a dangerous situation, inside of a house, and the idea was there's got to be a better way to do this than just blindly sending officers in. So that was kind of the birth of our program, Huntington Beach. Started the program in 2018, and I haven't left the drone world since. Around the same time, I went to the Regional Training Center as a student. At the time, that was really the only program I could find where drone training for public safety specifically was offered. So I went to that class, ended up becoming an instructor for them, and then now I'm the director of training for the drone side of the shop.
Well, we're going to dig a lot more into that, but Tim, what you didn't mention, that you did mention on Clubhouse. And by the way, everybody, if you missed Tim's conversation with Maggie Schuster last week on Clubhouse, you need to go back and listen to the replay because it was phenomenal. I remember you shared with Maggie and the group there that your family was big into firefighting. You thought that was going to be your path, and then you went on a ride along, and that just kind of changed everything for you. And that was the beginning of your career in law enforcement. I love that story. So I wanted to make sure people knew that, because I think, just little things like that, interactions with the community can really make a difference in people's lives. So obviously did in yours. Yeah. And here you are today, and that's we're so fortunate for that. Dave, over to you. I want to learn a little bit more about you. Now, I've heard about you forever. This is the first time I've virtually met you. I believe you were part of Las Vegas Police Department. We go to Vegas so many times with so many of these drone shows that we attend, and it's near and dear to my heart only because my parents live there. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Dave Martel from Las Vegas. I just retired back in March from Las Vegas Metro after 24 years. Prior to that, I was in the military station here at Nellis, so that's how I kind of got into Las Vegas here. And tested, made it, stayed. So back in 2015 or so, we saw a need for a better way to document accident scenes and crime scenes and all here in Las Vegas. So I started doing some research on implementing drones. I've been flying RC aircraft, pre-flight aircraft, pretty much since I was 10 years old, so for quite a while. So got into that, met with Ben Miller in Grand Junction, talked to him. Got a whole bunch of good feedback from him. The gentlemen's, everybody in Alameda County, and all the first pioneers when it came to UAS and public safety. And that's how we kind of started. 2017 is when we actually started our first program here. Unfortunately, October 1 was our first official mission with our drone. So we have not the real privilege, but the privilege of documenting and mapping out one of the largest crime scenes in U.S. history. So ever since there, it took off. We use it on just about every crime scene application here. Then we got into tactical. So we started working with Brink, with Blake Resnick and all, in helping them develop their aircraft. So we were pioneer in using the Brink in tactical. So pretty much every tactical situation, because it's such a great tool to de-escalate a situation. You don't need to put anybody in harm's way, officers or the public.
Yeah.
Send that in, two-way communication. We always deployed one on the outside as well, live feed straight into our command post so they can make real-time decisions and all. Has been invaluable to us, and that's why I went with Volatus, so I can keep teaching and showing other public safety and first responders how important this technology is and how valuable it is.
So you said a couple things I want to kind of piggyback on there, Dave. Number one, Ben Miller. Back in 2015, I was actually colonel in the Air Force, working at Air Combat Command in the JAG office there, doing all my research. And every time I turned around on the civilian side, I'd see this name Ben Miller, because he was really the first person out there who's a sheriff, right? Here in Colorado, where I am now. Out there using drones, and he was testifying before Congress and doing all this stuff. And by the way, Ben, fun fact, Ben was on this show. He's one of our first guests back in 2021. I'm going to say it was like August of 21. So everybody go check that out. It was really crazy show with Ben. And the incident you're referring to, Dave, that was that horrific shooting in Las Vegas. Is that what you were talking about, the October 1st?
Yeah, that was our mass shooting.
Yeah, and you guys mapped that crime scene with the drone?
Yeah, it took us 3 aircraft, 3 hours, 3 pilots. We broke it down into 3 different sections, so it's around 17.64 acres is how big that crime scene was.
Oh my gosh, wow, that's unbelievable. So, I mean, trial by fire, if you will, with your program there in Las Vegas. And I've been a huge fan of Brink and what Blake Resnick and his team have done. And I know he designed those drones specifically for SWAT and these kind of purposes, de-escalation, etc. So really cool background you've got there. And Tim, I want to flip back over to you. So you both had these like stellar careers in law enforcement. You both kind of evolved into training with civilian organizations, but training law enforcement, so kind of staying true to your roots. Let's talk about the Regional Training Center. I think we've got a couple of photos here to pop up, Tim. Tell us just kind of that overall mission statement, what the Regional Training Center is doing out there.
So the Regional Training Center was started, nothing to do with drones. It was started by a gentleman named Chris Bouse from, he worked at LAPD, and he wanted to provide affordable, high quality training to law enforcement by other law enforcement officers. So it was started as a nonprofit with the desire to provide just the most affordable training, for other fellow officers that can't get that training anywhere else. Drones started about 20, right when it started to explode, they offered their first drone class, which was probably about 2017. The unique aspect of how we teach is the instructors we employ. So every single one of our instructors are practitioners out there in the field. They're out there either managing or participating in UAS programs throughout the country. We have instructors from back east all the way to California, where we're based. So our instructors are out there doing it every day. They bring new, exciting things to the classes. We're constantly evaluating what we teach, how we teach it, what platforms we teach on, because as you know, the industry changes so much. So, we develop our courses based on needs, current events. We're adding courses based on where public safety is going. DFR, we added a DFR course and crime scene investigation and counter drone courses where crowd management, which is, after we all had to deal with mass amounts of protests, we learned a lot of lessons in how to deal with large crowds and using drones in those environments. So that's kind of the basic overview of the training center. Is the training center allows us to bring high quality training to law enforcement, fire, public safety all over the country. We're adding and getting into the private security industry because that is a market that's growing pretty quick and the demand is high for that. All of our training is certified through the state of California through the Police Officers Commission.
Yeah, that's significant, but I want to back up. You used an acronym. Now I know most people out there that are watching this show probably know what it is, but for the handful that don't, DFR is Drone as First Responder, and that is a term that was coined by the Chula Vista PD. By the way, Miriam Fox, Captain Fox from Chula Vista, was on this show last week. So if you guys missed that, go back and watch that spectacular show. They've been working very closely with the FAA in the integration pilot program and now beyond. And of course, Miriam gave a huge shout out to your center, Tim, because I believe she was trained there and a number of her officers go through your course. So let's walk it back for a second. Obviously, you reflect the times in your course. You add new content and materials as new, let's call it, use cases kind of pop up, if you will. But you also have like basic Part 107 type training too, right? To give people that initial knowledge and experience, and then the ability to pass their Part 107 and obtain that certification.
Yeah, that's correct. And we have a 5-day program ops course where if you're a brand new department like Chula Vista was, they came to us wanting, before they even came up with the concept of DFR, they wanted to start a drone program. So they were one of the early adopters, regardless of DFR, just to use drones in law enforcement.
Yes.
We provided them with their first training, along with a bunch of other agencies that are now just, they make us proud because these agencies are going out there and they're killing it in the drone, in the public safety drone world, pioneers, and they're doing great stuff. But yeah, so we'll have that 5-day class to start your program. How do you write policy? Do you go with a COER 107, pilot selection, pilot training, aircraft selection, how to navigate the public scrutiny, the city councils, the chief of police, how do you do funding? So that's all the basic 5-day. And then once programs are established, then we offer a 3-day Part 107 basic pilots course where we focus on aircraft flight and safety, and just so they can go back to their agencies with the basic knowledge and then go forward with their agency training.
Well, I love that you include, let's just call it governance. It's almost like ESG, right? Environment, social aspects, and governance in your program, because all of those things are so critical, especially when you think about public acceptance. When you think about public safety, you guys are the most visible out there to the public. There might be really cool stuff going on, some like long line linear inspection on some pipeline, but you know what? Joe Q public doesn't know about that. What they know is when they see, at the time, Captain Martin out there flying his drone or whatever. So I think that's really critical. I love what you guys are doing. And Dave, I want to pivot over to you because I know there's a synergy between the Regional Training Center, Volatus, and future collaborations kind of on the horizon here. You're involved in it with another group, the RTR, the Rapid Tactical. Tell me what that is. It's an acronym.
So it's a rapid tactical response. It's a
Okay.
company there in Fullerton, California. We've teamed up with them because they have a nice warehouse with a full shot house inside it. So we worked hand in hand with them, going off some of the tactical situations I've flown in, and helped them develop a real world tactical situation in a warehouse where we can have our pilots come in. We do a full 2 to 3 day class with students from public safety first responders, teaching them how to properly clear or search a house, how to look for suspects, how to look for, because one of the things that I've had an issue at the beginning is finding evidence and flying over that evidence and totally destroying the scene. Yes, that's not a real priority to kind of do that.
Wait a minute, back up. I'm an attorney. So tell me, I need to understand this. How do you fly over evidence and destroy it? Like, what? Give me an example of what you're talking about.
So casings and all that from them shooting in the houses and all. You know how important it is to keep the casings where they are and all that.
So if the downwash will like move things?
Oh yeah.
Oh my, I never would have thought of that. But I guess you guys didn't either and learned the hard way.
Yeah, but the one thing that we need to take into account is evidence is going to be blown around, but we're there to look for a suspect. That's our number one priority, is to get that scene safe and de-escalate the situation. So that's kind of in the back of our mind, but we kind of teach them how to go around and how to not raise up, because if you hit the stick and raise up too fast, that blade wash is really powerful and it's going to blow everything. So stick movements and all that kind of stuff, we teach them that. The one big thing that we're really getting into is teaching pilots that you're not clearing a house, you're searching a house. There's two different ways to do it. Clearing is where you're actually going under beds, opening up closets, and making sure there's no one there. With the drone, most of the closets and all we can't go into because they have draperies and they have clothing all, so we can't really get the drone in there because it'll suck it right into the blade. So we teach them you're searching, you're not clearing. So that's one of the distinctions that we teach in the class. And we built an attic, we built different rooms. We have like a hoarder room, because everybody can tell you when we go into a house or something flying around looking for somebody, it's not going to be the same. There's a lot of messy areas around that you have to take into consideration. And you've been here in Vegas, pretty much every house has ceiling fans or something hanging from the roof.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
So you got to take that into account. So your environment's very important. Where you're going to enter the structure is very important. So we've made it to where most of the time we have robots here blocking the doorways, so our suspect can't just run out from the residence or the structure. So we teach them how to get around the robot where we don't have to move the robot, fly over it, take into account the antennas, the cameras, systems, and all that, so we don't interfere with that. So that's how we integrate and partner with them. They've been great. They've done every suggestion that we have to the shot house, so it provides a real world situation for our pilots to fly in.
Well, really interesting. And by the way, Dave, you're mentioning some things, the ground robots. For those that missed the show with Dean Attridge from Volatus last month, go back and check that out. We've been also throwing out clips from that show. He kind of gave the overview of all the different Volatus hardware, and got the Hydra. That's almost looks like a mini tank. You can actually ride on that thing. I wouldn't want to run into that if I was a suspect, but that's a great segue maybe to go back to Tim and talk a little bit about this hardware, because you were one of the, you and Ben Miller, he was like basically your mentor, some of the early pioneers of drone programs for public safety. And I know not only procuring that equipment, but like, as you said, finding that right equipment. And that's something you also teach people today. I think we have a couple pictures here. Tell us about the different types of hardware that you guys use or used back in your public safety days, and kind of how you're seeing, the industry evolve, what you're talking to people about today from a hardware perspective. This is a cool picture, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. That's the Loki 2 from Sky Hero during one of our training days at Huntington Beach. It's interesting. The industry is evolving as much as the equipment that we're using. In the early days, we kind of just flew what we had available. If we could get it through a door, we flew it indoors, and that's the nice thing is we kind of have the philosophy of being agnostic in our platforms. We have just indoor alone, we probably have 5 or 6 platforms that our students will fly. We want them to make the decision. We want them to have an exposure to all those drones, the Loki, the Brink, the Avata, the FPV drone, and anything else that we think will be beneficial for flying indoors. We give them the opportunity to make that decision themselves based on what they're flying. But in the early days, I'm sorry.
What is this one?
That's the Evolve Dynamic Sky Mantis. It's a British company, very unique aircraft in my opinion. It's one of the few drones out there that has a tethered system that releases and gives you 40 minutes of flight time after the release. So it's got a Z30 camera in it. It's probably one of the highest rated waterproof and wind resistant drones out there. It's a monster. It's pretty big, but surprisingly it folds up pretty small.
Interesting.
So that was a test that we did to consider using that platform. The industry evolves as programs started 4 or 5 years ago as basic, just get us a drone, get us operational, give us the opportunity to get a few wins where we can impress upon the decision makers in our department to expand the program. So we kind of push that, like don't start big, start with what you can achieve. Don't promise something you can't deliver. And then once you start showing the value of these platforms, your program will naturally expand and grow. So all those agencies that started 3 or 4 years ago are now looking for the more advanced platforms. They're looking to upgrade. Their budgets are a little bigger, so they're going from maybe maybe from a Mini 2 indoors to now they want to buy something like the Brink or the Loki, depending on the circumstances. So
right.
We give them that opportunity to grow with the industry.
Well, Tim, you're right. Just looking at the 2 drones, you sent us pictures of. It's almost like in the legal world, when people ask this question, we say it depends. I imagine the hardware, it's kind of the same answer when someone asks you, like, what kind of drone, does a public safety agency need? It really depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? And some of these that you're talking about, like Dave, you mentioned indoor tactical operations, that's GPS denied. I mean, GPS is not going to fly your drone inside, right? So that takes a special kind of drone to achieve that. So I'm going to ask you, Dave, we got a question from the audience. I think this one's directed to you because you were talking about indoor tactical response. Kay Cruz, one of our regulars, is out there, asked, does a machine like Skydio help do a room-to-room search better, where your pilot is doing more overview than piloting? In other words, more autonomy, I guess, is what he's trying to ask. What drones are used in your training? And this is like a compound question. Let's ask for the first one. Does a machine like Skydio has more autonomous features, right? Does that help better in like searching, not clearing a room, from your perspective?
From my perspective, no. But I will say this: technology is evolving, so there are aircraft and other tools that can be used autonomous in buildings and all. It has developed. They're still working it out. But when it came to like Skydio and all, nothing bad about Skydio. It's just it did not work well indoors for us. So we went with Brink, and there's other aircraft out there. So we don't just teach one specific aircraft. It's normally up to the organization. Whatever they own is what we'll teach. them to fly indoors tactically, or help them understand what aircraft would best fit their needs when it comes to tactical indoor flights.
Okay, great. And actually, you kind of answered question two here, which is what drones are used in your training. So you kind of hit on that using a lot of Brink there. Tim, how about over to you? Like you alluded to it, we saw a couple images here, but what's kind of the range of different hardware solutions that you're using in your training?
A lot of what we do is based on what industry is using. So we try to mirror the industry. When new aircraft come out, we'll get them for training. But for the most part, we're hard on training aircraft. So we have a lot of beginner students that have never touched a drone before that are flying. So we kind of stick with the ones that have the most longevity for training. And a lot, the Evo 1. For training is one of the best platforms that we use. It's a workhorse. It's solid. The old Mavic Air 1 is probably the most durable drone there is out there, based on the abuse that we put it through for indoor stuff. But for the most part, we're using everything: DJI, Evos, Skydios, you name it. Especially if a vendor. We have a lot of vendors that will donate their aircraft to us for training. Number one, to get the exposure of their drone in the hands of public safety. We've trained last year. I think we were over 1,000 students. So that's pretty good exposure for any vendor to have a drone. So if a vendor provides us with a platform, it's going to be in the hands of the students. So that's the beauty of being a nonprofit and being agnostic is. I don't want to push any one. I have my favorites, but I don't want to push any one platform on any student or any department for that matter, because every situation is different. Every department has different issues that affect what platforms and how they're using them, from rural to urban to political.
Yeah, well, political. I'm going to hit that since you brought it up. But before I do, another thing is, weather. People don't, that's significant, right? Like, so a law enforcement agency in Seattle, Washington, where they're getting all kinds of rain, is going to have a lot of different needs than maybe someone in high elevations here in Colorado. I'm not going to mention the company, but we had an event here, and this company brought their drone. We were going to have a little demo day or whatever. They couldn't fly it because of the high elevation. Like it just wasn't working. So, it's just like, whoa, holy shnikes, so it just depends where you are, what you're trying to achieve. Absolutely. But you brought up political things, Tim, and I think what you're alluding to is something that people get super energized about, this idea of the blue drone, or, the threat that Chinese drones pose to national security or cybersecurity. The last I checked, there's not a ton of states that are kind of clamping down. Like I think Florida absolutely did, said they're only going to buy, blue, or only blues allowed. And I think it's only from the blue 1.0, not even 2.0 list or something like that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But the reality is, right, like law enforcement agencies may need access to a whole bunch of different kinds of drones. And the Evo you're talking about, Autel, is also a Chinese company.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know that I want to dig too much into political stuff, but for those out there that aren't tracking, there have been concerns raised. The federal government and Congress created some statutory bans. A number of federal agencies did so by policy, and some states are picking that up. And so the question is, what's the ultimate impact on, the flow down for law enforcement agencies that I think the last I checked, it was almost 80% of public safety agencies are using Chinese drones, or DJI in particular. So that's a pretty significant statistic. If it hasn't, I'd seen anywhere from 70% to like almost close to 90%. You never know what statistics are right, but all right.
Yeah,
So
I venture to say that number is higher. I mean, it is across the country, but it is spreading. It's not just Florida, Tennessee. is in the works to do it. I wouldn't be surprised by April that Tennessee has passed that law. Also, the governor signed it. Mississippi's rumored, Texas. So it is something to pay attention to, because I think even Congress now is working towards a national ban. So it is something that, and one of the things we push, and it's not specific about DJI or Autel or anything, is never have one manufacturer, one drone in your fleet. Diversify.
Anyway, yeah.
Have different options for different environments, because you never know. It's just a good practice to have that diversified fleet, so that you can adapt it to different things.
Now, I'm going slightly off script here, guys, so you tell me if I'm going too far over the line. Would you be willing to talk about, like, for the different scenarios, the ones that you've seen be the most effective? For example, like search and rescue in a rural environment or something like that. You both have such incredible experience. I don't know, those people listening would be very interested in probably knowing, what different platforms seem to be working best in what kinds of operations. Dave, you already mentioned Brink for the indoor, tactical rapid response type scenarios, which makes sense because that's what they frankly built the drone for. That's like the origin story of their company. Do you have any other thoughts? Because I know you've done a ton of different operations in Las Vegas and now with the training you do and your interactions with Volatus.
One of the great things that we've been able to do is test a lot of different platforms. So another one for indoor is like the Mavic, the Mini 3 has been great with the OcuSync 3. It's been able to penetrate here in Las Vegas, most of the old houses and apartment buildings are built in brick and mortar and all that. So it's been able to penetrate that great. The Avatas are great. UAV Tech, the Bug, and the other aircraft they have has been great. The main ones that we've used here in Las Vegas is, and to kind of go back to what you were talking about when it came to the federal government and all that,
Yeah.
is one of the issues that we had was funding. A lot of agencies are having issues with getting the money to be able to fund their UAS programs. We couldn't even get federal grants to fund our program unless we were buying certain aircraft. DJI not being that, or Autel, anything Chinese made, we couldn't buy with a grant. So agencies are going to have to take that into consideration if that's how they're going to buy their aircraft. But we've used Autel Evo 2s. Those are the ones that we use on the outdoor for tactical because of the 640 thermal, but the DJI DM30T is been remarkable, especially when it comes to like search and rescue. The Sky Mantis, we had that here in Las Vegas, and we used that on search and rescue mainly because the camera for one, the zoom capabilities, and the flight time. And it gets really, really hot here in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
So when we fly up in Valley of Fire, because we usually get at least 2 or 3 hikers out there that lose their way, so we have to go fly up there. And that aircraft, along with Skyfront and all that, has been remarkable when it comes to search and rescue. So just like Tim says, there's not one aircraft specifically for one mission or each mission to do everything. So agencies are going to have to look at having different platforms to be used for different situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, I don't know if you want to elaborate. I definitely want to hit the funding issue that Dave just brought up, because I know I think you called it very creative in your early days as you were starting your program, and you do give advice to agencies now how to find that money, and you had some great tips. So I definitely want to hit that next. But do you want to pile on at all to what Dave said about some of these platforms and some of the ones you said you had some favorites. I don't know if you're willing to share, but some of the ones for some of these different operations.
Yeah, in the early days of drone operations, there was, the first thermal that went on the market was the DJI Dual, and that was what a 120 thermal, and that was the most amazing thing out there. And nowadays thermals cameras are being used during the day as much as they are at night, and agencies, I think that's the core of any drone program, is you have to get that high quality thermal camera regardless of the platform. But going back to platforms and these agencies that have to look at other options, like anything, police officers are resilient, and you look at what's going on in Florida, and it's impressive how those Florida agencies they're just moving along. It's like, okay, if this is what we got to do, we got to do. And I've had the fortunate pleasure to work on the side in the Blue UAS industry, doing training and testing during some of the trials of the early days of the SRR program, and
that's the short range. That's the Army's short range reconnaissance program, for those that don't know. Yep.
Yeah, and the short range reconnaissance program was what the birth of the original Blue List came out with the 5 drones on it.
Yep.
So I think the potential for all of those companies to make a really high quality product is there. You look at the Paradnafi USA, obviously Skydios, they're up and running. Vantage Robotics, the Vesper, and even the Teal Golden Eagle, which you don't hear much about. It's an impressive. They're all impressive for what they are. I think the second version, the second generation of all those drones is going to be the versions to watch that will work out the kinks. And I don't think any of those manufacturers were ready to be thrust into this Blue UAS spotlight, where all of a sudden, not only did they have the military knocking on their door, now they have the entire state of Florida knocking on their door, and they're just not set up for that.
No, so they're not. Yeah. And Tim, you raise a great point. Those 5 companies were in the midst of the very specific military spec, right, SRR program. And, so not every law enforcement agency needs those kind of specifications for what they're trying to achieve. And so you're right, it kind of evolved into something it at least initially was never thought to be. I think Blue 2.0 pivoted quite a bit in response to what federal agencies were needing, not state, but federal agencies.
Yep.
When you see things like the Wingtra, Gen 1, 2, being, on the list and things like this, you're realizing, okay, they're using it for mapping. Like, that's a mapping drone, right? So really interesting how even the Blue program has evolved over time. But I want to get to this question from Chris Genesis. It's a great question. Chris is also another one of our super fans. We love him. He says, are there any recurring requests for capabilities that these systems have not addressed yet? In other words, are you getting requests from the field like, hey, we've got this specific need, and you haven't been able to find, for example, a drone or robot that can meet that need? Are you seeing anything like that? Or because there's so many different platforms out there, usually you can find something that's going to work? So I'll ask Tim.
So one of the off the top of my head, one of the things, and this is in any platform, and we're all about live streaming. We're all about getting that image to the right person. Usually it's Incident Commander. A lot of the early platforms did not have the capabilities to have HDMI out. So we were using Apple TV. Autel came out with their Live Deck, which was brilliant in my opinion. But one thing that the Army didn't do on any of their, when they did the SRR and even the SBS, which is a soldier-borne sensor, they don't have a requirement for live streaming. In fact, they don't want that necessarily. They want it to be just at the ground level. So the biggest thing that we're lacking in the industry is number one, easy and affordable live streaming, and a ground control station that can provide that HDMI out for whatever system you're going to use, because even if you pay for a service like drone sensor or air data, it doesn't do any good if you can't HDMI out that signal to those platforms.
Wow, my brain's exploding because like y'all need to be talking to Volatus. Like they do drone orchestration. Check them out. They're out of Miami, but
Yeah.
Florida. But anyway, I don't want to end the show. We are getting so close on time here, which is insane. I knew our time was going to fly. I do want to hit the financial question because I think that's really important and top of mind for so many people that are starting these programs. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with you, Dave, because first, and then end with Tim on that, because I know Tim's got he absolutely has tips. But Dave, you said people were, your Las Vegas PD was struggling, not being able to get grant money. So how were you able then to even do your program if that door in certain respects was closed to you? Like, how were you getting your hardware? How are you getting funding for manpower, whatever you needed?
Well, as the old saying is, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I first started, it was we got a $25,000 budget to begin with. It kind of limited us on the aircraft that we can buy and the software and all that. It grew into where we could use seizure funds and funds from that, and then we ended up we have a foundation attached to our department, just like most do, and we are able to get funds from them, donations and all that. When it came to the federal grants, it was just they would not allow us to buy Chinese type drones. So
Gotcha.
we started doing a lot of research and found aircraft like Sky Mantis from Evolve Dynamics, Skyfront from Tony there in California. Two great aircraft, two different needs though. So we have a robust mesh network here in Las Vegas, so the Skyfront was perfect for that, to put the aircraft. So we have a repeater system for any major event that we do, any outdoor events. So the funding is just, it comes down to the importance of your administration, or your administration actually seeing the importance of this technology and how it can be utilized in the correct way to help de-escalate situations, and how to give real-time video straight to your supervisors to make that real-time decision making right then and there, without putting anybody in harm's way. So it just comes down to administration seeing the importance and getting the funding for your program.
I think Dave just hit on a couple things, Tim, that I heard you say in Clubhouse. Number one, use of the nonprofit that a lot of these law enforcement agencies have, kind of affiliated with them, convincing leadership that this is value add, there's return on investment here, advocacy, all of these things. You had some interesting ones. Tell us about this Walmart thing or any other fun tips that people just might not know about. We have like 0 minutes left. So I'm gonna have you do that, and then I'm gonna do a quick lightning round with each of you, like anything upcoming, anything you want to close the show with. So over to you, Tim, on the funding, and then we'll hit the lightning round.
So funding, you mentioned Walmart. Each manager at Walmart has, I think it's like $10,000 a month that they could donate to any charity or any cause that they see fit. So a lot of agencies have gone to them and gotten drones. Community foundations, nonprofit, they're always looking for ways to donate to police departments. So just reach out to those companies and get stuff donated. End of the year budgets. As a police captain, I unfortunately never thought I'd be embedded in budgets, but at the end of the year, there's always money left over in some account that needs to be spent by June 1st. So that's where you grab that money and do it. And I'll end with this. We have got to change the philosophy of purchasing drones in law enforcement. DJI has spoiled us. Martel has spoiled us. They make high quality gear for cheap, but we have to increase our budgets in law enforcement in order to afford these other products that are coming out. For indoor specifically, you can't just have one. You have to have you got to have at least 2 indoor drones, because if one goes down, you don't just close the case and walk away. You got to be able to deliver with backups. So that gets expensive. So we have to. The last one I'll leave you on is IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, through the COPS office, through DOJ. They have a fully funded program to help agencies get started. They'll fully fund training and everything you need to get a drone program off the ground, fully funded by the federal government.
Wow, that awesome tips right there. Dave, anything you wanted to add or anything you want to close with as we round out the show here?
No, we just want everybody to know we're here for them. Like with Tim, we know the importance of this technology and how it needs to be utilized within public safety and all. And this industry has grown so much, especially within public safety. No matter what, we're competitors, but we still are teammates. We still work together. That's the great thing when it comes to public safety in the drone industry, is everybody knows each other. We work together really well, and if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Well, we're here to help.
And real quick, I know we're over time already. Tim, I know you're doing a show here with Mary McNabb, a monthly show on public safety through drone responders. So congrats on that. Can you tell us real quick, both of you, how people can, number one, Tim, find your show, find you otherwise, and then we'll end with Dave, and then we're out here.
Yeah, you can get a hold of me at the Regional Training Center website. Also, LinkedIn is probably the best way. That seems to be the best way to communicate is on LinkedIn, and all my contact information is there.
All right, awesome, very, very good. And then Dave?
Yeah, please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn as well. David Martel at volatusaerospace.com is my email. Reach out anytime. Be more than happy to help. And drone responders, if you are not a member of drone responders, please become one. It's free, and it's a wealth of information. Tim's an advisor. I'm a technical expert with them. If you need any help with policy or anything, they have it there. So please sign up for them and reach out to us if you need anything.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for taking this time. Thank you for your service, your continued service to our communities. So much ground to plow. We didn't get to nearly cover everything I wanted to, but everybody reach out to these guys if you have more questions. Thank you so much for joining in. We are out here.